Do you know what's worse than being cheated on? Watching it happen in real time, frame by frame, on your security camera. My name is Marcus, and I used to believe that if you worked hard and provided for your family, everything else would fall into place. That was my mindset for years. I put in long hours, took every opportunity to grow in my career, and made sacrifices. Because I thought it was for the greater good. My job required me to travel often, sometimes for days, weeks at a time. It wasn't easy, but I kept telling myself that every trip, every late night, every exhausting flight was worth it. Because I was building a better future for my family. I thought I was being a responsible husband. Janelle, my wife, never outright complained about my work, at least not in a way that made me think there was a serious problem. She would occasionally sigh and say things like, "You're always working, Marcus," or "I feel like I never see you anymore." But that's normal, right? People in relationships miss each other. I figured it was just frustration speaking, nothing more. Looking back, there were small things I ignored. Janelle always loved attention, that wasn't new, but over time, it felt like she needed it more and more. She would dress up, full makeup and everything, even when she had nowhere to go. If I asked, she'd shrug it off, saying she just wanted to feel good about herself. That made sense to me, so I never questioned it. Then there were the parties. Janelle loved having a good time, and I never minded that. But she started throwing bigger, more extravagant gatherings, even when I wasn't around. At first, I thought she was just social, maybe a little bored while I was away. But now, I see it for what it was. Distraction, or maybe something else entirely. I didn't question her, I trusted her. I was the kind of man who believed that if you love someone, you don't need to constantly check up on them. But trust is a dangerous thing when placed in the wrong hands. And as I would soon find out, mine was. A few days before Janelle's birthday, I had another business trip lined up. One of those trips that couldn't be pushed back or rescheduled. I had already planned around it, made sure everything at home was squared away. And even arranged for gifts to be delivered to her on the day. I wasn't happy about missing her birthday, but this was just the nature of my work. She knew that, she had always known that. When I told Janelle I wouldn't be around for her big day, I expected at least a little disappointment. Maybe a sigh, a pout, or even a half-joking complaint about how I was always gone. But she barely reacted, just nodded and said, "Okay." That was it, no questions, no sulking, no playful attempt to make me feel guilty. At the time, I told myself it was a sign of understanding, that maybe she was finally getting used to my schedule. But looking back, that moment plays in my head like a warning I failed to hear. Still, I didn't think much of it, I had a lot to prepare for. And as always, before heading out, I ran through my pre-travel checklist, bags packed, check work documents in order, check house security system active, double check. I had installed the cameras a while back, not because I was paranoid, but because there had been a string of break-ins in the area. At first, it was just for security, nothing more. But over time, it became a habit to review the footage when I returned home. Just a quick scan to make sure everything was normal while I was gone. It was never anything major, usually just Janelle walking around the house. The occasional delivery at the door, or her having a few friends over. I had no idea that this simple routine, this thing I did purely for peace of mind, would soon shatter every belief I had about my marriage. After a grueling week of back-to-back meetings and exhausting flights, I finally returned home. The familiar scent of my house greeted me as I stepped inside. I felt relieved to be back to my comfort base. I dropped my bags in the bedroom, loosened my tie, and made my way to the kitchen to grab a drink. All I wanted was to unwind, maybe take a long shower, eat something, and sleep for a full day. But first, my routine. I headed to my home study, sat down at my desk, and pulled up the security footage like I always did after a trip. With a drink in hand, it had become second nature at this point, something I did more out of habit than necessity. The cameras weren't hidden, just subtle, positioned in places most people wouldn't pay attention to. I never really expected to see anything out of the ordinary. At most, I thought I'd catch Janelle having some friends over or ordering takeout late at night. The footage played as usual. The living room was empty, the kitchen was quiet, the hallway still. Then I noticed something that made my stomach tighten: unfamiliar movement at odd hours. It was the night of Janelle's birthday. The timestamp on the screen showed just past 9 p.m. Long after any normal party should have ended. I frowned, adjusting the playback speed, my curiosity turning into unease. And then I saw it. Janelle came home, sitting in our living room, surrounded by 3 men. At first, I thought maybe they were just guests, friends I didn't know about. But then they started dancing for her, stripping. The way she laughed, the way she reached out to touch them, the way she let them press against her. My stomach twisted into knots. This wasn't just a birthday party, this was something else. I felt my pulse pounding in my ears as I fast-forwarded through the footage, needing to know just how deep this betrayal went. What I saw next drained every ounce of warmth from my body. They moved to our bedroom. Janelle led them there, giggling, swaying her hips, looking back at them like she couldn't wait for what was coming next. And then, in our bed, the same bed we shared, the same bed where I had held her, kissed her, made love to her. She let them have her, all of them, one after the other. They recorded everything. My hands clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms, my throat felt dry, my vision blurred. But I forced myself to watch. I wondered if there was any rational explanation for this act. But there wasn't. She moaned for them. She touched them the way she used to touch me. She gave them everything, and she enjoyed it. That was the part that hit the hardest. The way she had once looked at me with desire, with passion, with love, was now reserved for strangers. Something inside me shattered. I felt empty. The next morning, I woke up early, not because I had gotten a good night's sleep. I hadn't slept at all. My mind had been racing the entire night, replaying what I had seen, dissecting every moment, every movement, every sound. My heart had burned with rage, but I had forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to let my emotions control me. I needed to see something first. I needed to know exactly what kind of person I had been married to all these years. I walked into the kitchen like it was any other morning. Janelle was already there, sitting at the counter in her silk robe, scrolling through her phone while sipping coffee. She looked relaxed, carefree, like a woman who had nothing to hide. I poured myself a cup and took a seat across from her, my face blank. I watched her for a moment, studying her movements. She didn't even glance up. She had no idea what I knew. Then, in the most casual tone I could muster, I asked, "So what did you do on the night of your birthday while I was away?" She barely looked up from her phone. Nothing much, just a little celebration. Her voice was light, indifferent, no hesitation. I just stared at her, no reaction, no follow-up questions. I let the silence stretch between us. It took a few seconds, but eventually, she noticed. Her fingers slowed on the screen, and she finally glanced at me. "Why?" she asked, a slight crease forming between her brows. I leaned back in my chair and shrugged, just wondering. She knew she had done something unforgivable, but instead of coming clean, instead of admitting what she had done, she doubled down. Her expression hardened, and her tone sharpened. "What do you mean by that?" she snapped. "Are you questioning my faithfulness?" The audacity of that statement almost made me laugh. The way she said it, the way she tried to flip the situation, turning it back on me like I was the one in the wrong for even asking. Gaslighting, manipulation, textbook behavior. I said nothing. I just sat there, letting her words hang in the air. Her irritation grew. She set her phone down, now fully focused on me, her eyes narrowing. Marcus, what are you trying to say? Because if you're accusing me of something, just come out and say it. Still, I didn't react, didn't blink, didn't give her the satisfaction of an argument. I could see it now, the way she tried to maintain control of the conversation. She expected anger, she expected yelling, accusations, and a heated fight. Where she could twist things around and play the victim. What she didn't expect was silence. Silence was power, and silence was control, and right now, I had all of it. She had no idea what was coming next. That night, I sat alone in my home office, the only light coming from my computer screen. I had spent hours debating what to do. Should I confront her by showing her this footage since she's playing dumb? Should I just pack my things and leave? This wasn't something I could forgive, there was no fixing this, no coming back. She had filmed herself betraying me, convinced she would never be caught. She had laughed, moaned, and indulged in her fantasies while I was out working to build a future for us. And worst of all, she didn't feel even an ounce of guilt. If I hadn't seen the footage myself, she would have kept lying, kept smiling in my face. And kept sleeping in my bed like nothing had happened. She thought she was untouchable, she thought she could do whatever she wanted without consequences. That was about to change. I transferred the files to my phone, carefully selecting the clearest moments. The ones where her face was visible, the ones where there was no denying what she had done. Then, one by one, I started sending them out, to her parents, her siblings, her best friends. And then, for the final blow, I uploaded it to social media. If she wanted to turn our marriage into a joke, then I would make sure the world laughed at her too. The fallout was immediate. I was still sitting in my chair, sipping on a glass of water, when I heard it, the first frantic ring of her phone. Then another, and another. Within minutes, her phone was blowing up with calls and messages. At first, she ignored it, probably thinking it was nothing important. But then, I heard her tone shift, the panic, the confusion, the sheer terror creeping into her voice. Wait, what? What are you talking about? A pause, then a sharp, who sent you that? I almost smiled. It didn't take long before Janelle came storming through the front door. Slamming it shut so hard that the walls seemed to shake. Her face was twisted with rage, her eyes wild with humiliation. I had seen her angry before, but never like this. This wasn't just anger, it was desperation. You're heartless, she shrieked, her voice raw, nearly cracking under the weight of her emotions. You're wicked, how could you do this to me? Her hands clenched into fists at her sides as she stared at me, as if daring me to react. I remained seated in my chair, expression blank. Letting her rant, letting her explode, letting her feel what it was like to lose control. This is your fault, she spat, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. You never gave me attention, you were always traveling, what did you expect me to do? Just sit here and wait for you like some pathetic housewife? I let out a slow breath through my nose. There it was. The deflection, the excuses, the blame shifting. Not once did she apologize, not once did she show an ounce of remorse. Instead, she made herself the victim, as if she had been forced into betraying me. As if my dedication to providing for us was some kind of crime. Then came the final blow, the one she thought would break me. I regret ever marrying you. The words hung in the air, venomous and meant to wound. I met her gaze, my face devoid of emotion, and said the only words that mattered, the divorce papers will be ready soon. Silence. For the first time since she had walked in, she froze. As if she hadn't expected me to be this cold, this final. As if she still thought she had control over the situation. Then, just as quickly as the anger had flared up, it shifted into something else. Panic. Her breath hitched, her lips trembling as her eyes glossed over. "You can't just throw this away," she whispered, her voice suddenly softer, desperate. We can fix this." I scoffed. "Fix? You're a manipulator." She sobbed, her anger now twisted into a pathetic attempt at guilt-tripping. "You're cruel. You're doing this on purpose to hurt me." She threw every accusation she could think of, scrambling for something, anything that would make me react. That would make me feel, but I didn't, because I didn't care anymore. I stood up, brushing past her without a second glance. She collapsed onto the floor, her sobs filling the room, a broken mess of her own making. And I walked away. The day I signed the divorce papers, I didn't feel sadness, I didn't feel anger, I felt relief. Even with the things the court gave her, Janelle, the woman I had once loved, the woman I had once envisioned growing old with, was now nothing more than a distant memory. A mistake in my past that I had finally erased. She had destroyed everything with her own choices, and now she was left to deal with the consequences. There was no sympathy, her reputation, she was left to pick up the pieces alone. Her dignity shattered, every attempt to defend herself, every excuse she tried to make, fell on deaf ears. She had no one to blame but herself. And as for me, I walked away from it all, from the lies, from the betrayal. From the woman who thought she could gaslight and manipulate me and walk away unscathed. I wasn't proud of what I had done, but I didn't regret it either. She thought she could betray me in secret and move on like nothing happened. Instead, her biggest mistake became the world's entertainment. But I've said enough. What do you think? Was I right to expose her, or did I go too far? Let me know in the comments, and if you think cheaters deserve what's coming to them. Don't forget to like and share this story.